Well, let's get some more analysis. We can cross to Washington and speak to Sinan Ciddi, who is an expert on Turkish domestic politics and foreign policy and a non-resident senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Thank you so much for joining us. For our audience who might not know, the FDD is a research institute focusing on national security and foreign policy. Let me just start by asking you, Sinan, what is your reaction to the outcome of round one and the fact that a second round with President Erdogan in the lead? I mean, I want to ask you, does that look to you like a done deal?
Not quite. I mean, I think it was a stunning result, to say the least. Not least of all because I think there was a heightened expectations put forward by not just pollsters, but a lot of people who watch and write about Turkey, not least of all in Washington, but across also in Turkey, suggesting that Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu was poised to take power. And that didn't happen. And I think there's been a big sort of disappointment and some level of defeatism amongst the opposition, as well as pollsters, as well, and Turkey watchers across the globe. But that being said, you're right. This is going to a second round. And I should add that this is, at this point, unprecedented, simply because since Turkey sort of rolled out this presidential system of government, we've never seen a situation whereby, it's going to a runoff election where, between the two candidates. So it's kind of uncharted territory. But as your previous speaker, as well as, your report suggested, that Mr. Erdogan's going into this with the wind in his sails.
Yeah, he is. I mean, clearly the opinion polls, the pollsters got this kind of wrong, or badly wrong. I mean, what does Kılıçdaroğlu need to do in the next 13 days to turn things around? Is there anything he can do?
Well, he needs to look like a winner. And unfortunately, he hasn't given us this image. And, Mr. Erdogan looks old and frail. He's had a health scare. But last night, he was exactly what you needed a guy that was, interested in, winning an election needed to look like, which is go out on a balcony, regardless of, whether that was legitimate or not. Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu complaining that balcony speech was a fait accompli is not going to help. He needs to look like a winner. What I mean by that is Mr. Erdogan's talk was in front of his supporters, his base, thousands of people who showed up outside his party headquarters. And in the video there, you see Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu with all this sort of lieutenants basically addressing a crowd of journalists, all subdued with just messages of complaint saying, oh, there was issues relating to the vote tallies and the Anatolian news agency is not, representing this. It's just we heard excuses. People already knew this, election was not going to be free and fair. The question that they have for Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu is, what are you going to do about it? How will you ensure, if you can, for the first time in 21 years, can you defeat Mr. Erdogan? And right now, he doesn't seem to inspire a lot of confidence.
OK, well, we'll have to see how things pan out in the next just under 2 weeks. There's one other person here that we haven't talked about, the possible kingmaker, the nationalist candidate Sinan Ciddi, who placed third in Sunday's election. He's got 2.8 million supporters. Where do you think he's going to steer them, and will that make a difference?
So he's indicated that his vote is for sale, which was not necessarily altogether outside the realm of expectation given his proclivities. But here's sort of some original, some initial takes on this, whereby he is, as your report suggested, a far-right nationalist candidate with a base of voters who did not want to vote for Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu. And he signaled that he's willing to basically possibly back the alliance of Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu, but he's instructed Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu to dump his sort of relationship with Kurdish voters and specifically the Kurdish party itself that supported Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu. I don't think that's necessarily a winning strategy for Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu because without the Kurdish vote, Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu's numbers would have been even more depressed. So, my initial sense is it could be a game changer in the sense that it is more likely, although not certain, it is more likely that Mr. Erdogan's sort of desire or proclivity would be for his votes to go to Mr. Erdogan, but we'll have to see.
OK, we're going to have to leave it there. We're out of time. But Sinan Ciddi, non-resident senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies in DC, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us on France 24 today.
Thank you.